All right, I'm going to take a couple minutes to get ready. Get ready. Get ready. I want to make sure I don't dox anyone depending on what buffer the Emacs is in. Oh, it would have been fine. In fact, yeah. 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 So I'm not going to be showing my dance moves this week because I actually have a dance injury right now. And it was affecting what I was able to do today, or not really what I was able to do, but what I wanted to do. It was not a safety dance. I mean, I could not be called a practitioner of the safety dance. No. I mean, this wasn't like an injury like you would think of. Like, I actually had a really not fun injury that was an injury like you would think of like 4 or 5 months ago. And fortunately, that has healed almost 100%. Otherwise, I would be very sad. The thing that happened this week is just, like I lift people and move them a lot, right? And I like doing that from weird angles in unexpected ways, as I learn more ways to move people around. And just some of the stuff I've been doing lately, you do. Sometimes when you tense your muscles, it's coherent and it creates strength. And sometimes it's just tension. And I'm not sure which this is because I wasn't aware of it before this week. But like way down at the base of my spine, sort of like right where it starts connecting to like the tailbone or the pelvis or something. When I do certain really big lifts, it feels like I tense that, right? Some muscle that I never had reasons to think about before. And maybe that's helping give strength to the lift because it's support like down there, but maybe not. But it probably is because I'm probably putting pressure on that in some way that's complicated to understand. But anyway, the result is just like it was starting to feel like super cramped and tight, like I needed to like stretch out somehow. So I tried doing weird leg stretches and stuff. But then I kept doing really big lifts, and like one time it was like I really felt it like strain itself a little bit more. And so now it's kind of been aggravated all day today. So sacroiliacs, I'm not sure. There's a lot of muscles down there. That's the thing. This is one that feels mostly like it goes across the lower back, but also like internally. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's not really like painful. It more like feels sore. But if I go to like pick up somebody big, I don't know. This even happened. I mean, I was dancing with someone who was probably only 145 pounds or something. And I was going to do a really big lift. And this was after I'd already aggravated it this morning. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I don't want to do this. So, yeah, I'm going to take like a week off. It's a bummer because I was going to go brave the wastelands of the San Francisco Bay Area to go dancing this week. And I have decided it is not the best time for that. What is a macro and how do they work? Well, the answer to that question depends on what programming language you are talking about. In this one, I mean, maybe you could get it by osmosis. I'm going to make some notes. So I sort of asked on the secret Discord what issues people might want to look at. Because it's on the roadmap before releasing the language, it's on the roadmap to revise macros to be better, to be like actually good. And okay, what does that mean? And there's a couple different ways of looking at it. One way is solving problems with the current system, and that's definitely one thing we should do. But the other thing is, do they realize their full potential, right? Of like how they should be. And I don't think they currently do, but I'm not sure how far off they are because I haven't honestly used them that much for the sophisticated things that they're designed for. Like, dude, our macros are nuts. They can do like insane things that nobody else can do, really. Because they're combined with arbitrary compile time execution, right? So your macro could ask Xi Jinping what code should be inserted here, and then that'll get inserted, right? But, you know, so yeah, what are my thoughts on C macros? Here's the thing. C macros were really smart for the time. Because all they do is a flat text substitute. And that's very simple and that's very factorable out from the rest of the programming language. So you don't get a dovetailing of complexity like I have to deal with because our macros are structural, right? However, it also causes a lot of problems. Like it further locks C into the sequential parsing and processing thing. You know, they're not really debuggable. They make messes. You don't really want to write big macros in C if you could help it, right? It's just not good. Don't let AI program in this language. Listen, the idea that I just had because this tweet that I made about like, I don't get it when everybody says AI is revolutionizing programming. It sort of fell into two camps. It got like retweeted a lot or subtweeted or whatever with a lot of people basically agreeing. But then of course there's always the froth of people calling me an idiot and I must not know how to program. So what I decided is I'm going to give it another chance because there's this new thing. Is it called Cursor or whatever? This editor. I haven't tried that. I've just tried like regular, you know, like GPT-4 or whatever. So tomorrow earlier in the day, we're going to do a stream where we download this and then we're going to use it to work on the compiler to implement some of what we talk about tonight. So tonight we're going to make some decisions about what the roadmap is for working on. I mean, I hope this thing even does C++, right? But, you know, and then we're going to download Cursor from cursor.com and it's going to be awesome. It's going to really help us. Am I concerned about intellectual property issues? I don't know if we're going to use any of the code. My presumption is we're probably not going to use any of the code that comes out of Cursor. All right. But we can make that decision just based on looking at the output, right? Maybe we will. Maybe it'll be so good I'll be like, hey. Macros should act like functions when debugging. You hate that they don't. While CodeView and Dwarf have support for that. I mean, we've actually tried to do macro debugging support, and it's actually pretty hard. Unless we're doing something dumb. It's like not like, because, okay, so first of all, there's two different things that you, like ideally, you would be able to step across a macro or step into a macro, right? But like, that seems to work based on, I mean, maybe different editors do it differently, but we don't really know how to make that happen, right? So it's like you have to decide at compile time whether you want your macro to pretend like it's all crammed into one line invisibly, right? Like an inline function, in which case you can't step into it, or whether you want to be forced to step into it, right? Because we're like saying, you know, for this generated code, it's at this file and this line. And both of those are really inconvenient in some contexts, right? And like, I don't exactly know how to get debuggers to let me step over it, you know, with like, for example, F10 in Visual Studio, as if it, you know, was just an inline function or something, right? You can have debugging for inline functions. I mean, dude, I didn't do this work directly like Raphael did it, but he was saying he couldn't fucking figure it out. Like not a way to get it to behave. And I don't remember the details. We had a conversation about it where we talked about the problem. It seemed like a legit problem. Now, of course, this is, of course, different between CodeView and Dwarf and whatever. So I don't know. But like, that's an area that I would definitely like to improve if we could figure it out. Your intuition says it's almost impossible. I mean, it would be easy in principle. Like if debuggers planned for it, it would be pretty easy actually, right? You're currently about to add support for it in your compiler and debugger. Okay, great. If you get it working, talk to me, and I would like to know what you did, because I would love to improve the experience of debugging macros here. Because, you know, early on, that was part of the motivation to do hygienic macros, is like, dude, you can step into it while debugging. It'll be awesome, right? And in reality, it's like, okay, you don't actually always want that, and it kind of sucks sometimes. And so how do you get around this? Will this be on YouTube? I kind of doubt it. I don't feel like it, but maybe. Okay, so let's talk about, like I said, we're going to do the macro, not Marco, the macro roadmap, all right? And there's two categories. One, problems, current problems, solve current problems, right? And two, reach potential, right? There's no reason in having a big complicated macro system if it's not better than a simpler macro system. for the purposes of what people want to do, right? Okay. Let's, I'm going to make some of these style comments here, because we might actually type code into this file. I don't know. So, okay, solve current problems. What are current problems? Number one, backticking does not uh, compose across nested macro calls. If double backtick, etc., let's put a comma, lol, etc., would be annoying, not least because you would have to change these based on as you refactor your code. All these as you refactor your code. Okay, so that's kind of one issue. Issue number two, this has multiple parts. Ambiguity when looking at code about whether a call is a procedure call or a macro call. This is totally fine when the macro doesn't insert declarations or do other wacky macro only stuff, but doing wacky stuff is the whole point of macros. B, the compiler also would like to know when a macro is allowed to insert declarations at a specific point, because then it knows whether or not it can proceed with name resolution of things later in the function, which would let us bring back the thing about referencing, calling functions later in the, defined later in the block. Maybe. Then again, maybe I could just bring this back now, not sure. Okay, so that's the whole thing. So anyway, this suggests that macro calls that can insert declarations look syntactically different from procedure calls in an obvious way at the calling. Oh, yeah. That's right. Three, have I looked at generating executables directly inside the compiler? It is pretty easy if you're not planning to link with static libs. We have not gone all the way to that, right? We generate object files, but we use a linker for the final step. I just haven't bothered doing that, but the reason is because 100% of our use cases link C libraries. And so like nobody would really be using that path anyway right now. And so it just kind of doesn't make sense to put work there for us. Although I agree in principle that's great because you don't have any of this dependency fuckery that you get, you know, on both Windows and Linux in different ways by, you know, using their actual compiler and linker. So, yeah. Backticking is not present. Yeah, I don't care about that. Buy a real American keyboard. I try to do that. That's why we didn't use caret for pointers, because early on people were like, keyboards in Finland don't have caret. But the problem is, and it's true, you should, it's better if you try to fit with everything. But the thing is, at some point, like if you're going to take the lowest common denominator of all keyboards, it's really limiting, right? That's the real problem. Have we seen much of the Lisp syndrome? No. Macros are defined so far to avoid the Lisp syndrome because, and this is actually a limitation. Let's type this in. Because all code prior to being expanded by a macro must parse in a valid way, and it must even resolve all identify and type check all identifiers if just vanilla looking code, if after a code directive it merely needs to parse, but code is more verbose / ugly. Okay, but for this reason we don't have Lisp syndrome at all, right? And that was a day one design decision, right? In this programming language, it was like, we're not going to destroy readability. This isn't for making your own domain specific language inside the language, right? That's not what this is for. Very deliberate decision. Okay, so this is good, but also bad because there's really no complete lack of flexibility around syntax maybe isn't good sometimes, but especially the requirement that everything type checks is pretty harsh for some use cases. This ties into the metaprogram system too, though. Right now, we get great utility from the metaprogram only seeing type checked code. We could add another message phase for only parsed code, but I am not sure this means macro expansions can happen at that time. Maybe they could. Actually, they kind of could. I don't know, man. If they look syntactically different, they could. If they look syntactically different from procedure calls, likelihood of this goes way up. Okay. I am also not sure I want to add the compiler complexity and potential speed hit of another pass through the message pipeline. Yeah. What if we paste this into GPT and say, okay, what should we do about macros? Are macro and metaprogram the same thing or different? They're different, but they're related, right? So like in the metaprogram, you can get code for a procedure, dork around with it, and resubmit the procedure, right? Which is essentially what a macro expansion is also allowed to do, is doing, essentially, right? It just happens kind of at a different time. Man, you can't embed JSX syntax for React if you can't customize the parser. Oh no! How are we going to survive without embedding JSX syntax for React? Why do you have many green squiggles in Visual Studio? Do I? You mean the comments? The comments? What are green squiggles? What are you talking about? You have too many windows. Do I have any idea on how to make subscript operator work on pointer to array, for example, but subscript the array elements like references with no extra types added? Here's what I think about all this, right? Like if you program in C a lot, or even C++, you think that it's important to make it, well, you just, it's natural to maintain subscript on a pointer, right? The thing is, by the time you have like first class arrays and first class, well, you know, like, and you do the usual thing where you have a struct and they could have overloads or whatever. By the time you do enough higher level things, but implement them in a way where people actually want to use it, because of course in C++, all the modern C++ quote unquote people want you to do things their way, but their way is horrendous and terrible, right? So I don't do it. But by the time you add reasonable, well-performing, thin data structures for these things, you don't really want to subscript pointers very much, right? This might be a different exercise that we could do sometime. Let me put that in the file. Benchmark how many times in the code base we subscript pointers and how many of these should happen, as opposed to like being like legacy code that, or just, you know, someone on the team was thinking about it in a C way, right? Anyway, my point is, I think we actually subscript pointers so little that it would be fine if you had to say on the subscript operator, this is a pointer subscript, right? And then if you did that, so the more verbose thing is like subscripting the pointer. And then if you do that, then when that's not there, you're just going to subscript through to the base type if you have a pointer to a thing, right? And I think probably everybody would be happy with that. So that's, maybe we'll do that soon because it's a relatively easy feature. How long would the witness take to produce as a solo endeavor, including engine building? For me specifically, like if I did everything, keep in mind I'm a fast programmer. I'm going to say I would have to learn how to use art tools. Keep in mind, I don't know, maybe the art's uglier. It probably would take like 17 years, 18 years. Let's say 18. Maybe it could go faster than that. You meant the game dev. Well, what do you mean game dev aspect? You mean just the programming plus design? I did all the design. That took a lot of time. An estimation of the programming side. Okay. Programming only. If it's just the base game shipping on PC, like we're not worried about running on PlayStation. Programming only. Not design, not art. We didn't start totally from scratch, but pretty close. I probably could have programmed that whole game in 5 or 6 years. Let's say 6 to be safe. Again, not counting ports, not counting various other stuff. But that's me. I work more hours than people seem to work and, have other ways of getting more done. So just take that for what it is. But yeah. How long would it have taken in this? I don't know. Like, it's easy to brag that your language is so much faster, and it would be. It would be faster to make the game in this than it was in C++. That's not included in my estimation, but it's not going to be like 50% faster. Well, if it is, it's for process reasons, like that you're not sitting around waiting for compilation all the time and whatever. And that you have a better view of like what your program is doing with memory and all that. But it would be very rash to say it would go twice as fast. I don't think that's true. Would it go 10% faster? Yeah. Would it go 20% faster? Probably. I don't know. These things are very hard to estimate. I could be way off. It's like very hard. Like, you've got to keep in mind, you always forget what took time and all this stuff. Like that development was a while ago at this point. All right. Anyway, solve current I feel like I had another thing to put on the current problem list. Yeah, I feel like what I'm thinking right now is more like a potential answering. If I remember back current problems, we'll go back to current problems. I keep clicking on the wrong icon. Yeah, we don't really have new suggestions. How do you get faster at programming just doing it a lot? That's one of the main ways, yes. But here's the thing. In all areas of life, right, there are lots of people who can do something for a long time and they don't really get better at it. You don't want to be one of those people. You want to be one of the people who gets better at what you do. And the way that you do that is you just evaluate your own performance, right? So you don't just have to be programming, but you have to evaluate your own performance. How well did it go? What do I not like about how it went? What can I improve for next time, right? If you don't do that, you're probably not going to get as much better as you could. Do I need to review my old code a lot? No, not at all. Why would I do that? You mean from previous projects, or do you mean stuff I did last month on this project? I don't understand that question. To better see where you could do better? No, because, okay, the evaluation doesn't necessarily just come from looking at the source code, right? It's like, how long did it take me to do the thing, right? Could I have done it faster? Did it work very well when I did it, right? Could it have worked better? Is it a lot more code than I wish it was? Am I scared of the code? That's the number one question, because most programmers at some point become scared of the code, right? Where it's like, oh, that system's really gnarly. I don't want to touch it because we might break something. As soon as you get there, it's basically over. You're in managed decline at that point. So, but you know these things without having to go like review the code probably. Do unit tests make sense at all in game development? Not really. I don't use them. Speaking of using time, I have a problem of wanting to get deep in every aspect of what I'm learning, like a compulsion for knowledge. It definitely slows you down. Do you have any views on how to keep balance between the curiosity and pragmatism? I mean, it's just different personality types, but for me, I always learn by knowing why I want to know the thing. It's like, oh, I want to make a video game. I don't know anything about making video games. So what do I need to know? Well, I need to put stuff on the screen. Oh, I'm reading these articles about 3D graphics. That's so cool. Let me learn how to do that. And it was really hard for me at the time, but I learned it, right? So for me, there's usually a context of why do I want to know? I don't get fascinated about arbitrary things. And I recognize that that's a little bit like incorrect in some sense, because all topics are really fascinating if you just regarded for their own worth, but I don't care about a lot of things. And that's how I actually get things done is, like I don't really care about all the different tree data structures that there are. Like, I'm sure that's really interesting if I felt motivated to go like study it and whatever. On the other hand, if you're completely ignorant of tree data structures and don't know how they work, that's terrible. So you don't want to be like completely ignorant of tree data structures, but it's also like, okay, I get it. I get the basic idea. So, I've got some Knuth books on my shelf that I can go look in if I want to know about weird trees. And otherwise, I'm chilling, right? And that's kind of how I operate. But that's my personality. The reason that works is because it's authentic to me. Like, if you're not that way, then you got to find what works for you. The macro system is everything that the user is able to specify. No. That's not the macro system. The macro system is basically expand, yeah. But not run or insert. Run and insert and all that is totally different stuff. You've barely used macros. What's fundamentally the use case? Well, let's talk about use cases as we continue in our notes. Reaching potential. What are some examples of things that I ought to be able to do? And this is just off the top of my head. 1, code search and replace, where you call a macro on a code argument and the code gets messed around with. Is this really useful? It seems like it should be. Lisp people did this all the time, but is it useful if you are not a crazy ass Lisp bro? Okay. 2, let's just say N, examples, example applications. So one thing that we could do is like automatic differentiation, right? For example, you could do this in the meta program. You could do it in macros. It's probably better if you do it in macros, because like it's just more convenient to have code in your code base versus in the meta program code base. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, if I were to do this, like, I'm not sure that you can get nodes for another procedure arbitrarily. But anyway, like this is something you could imagine doing, is saying, you know, I want derivative of f, right? Or whatever notation you want. Have we fixed corrected bitwise operator precedence? No, I think we changed it on purpose. We did change some precedence thing a while back, but I don't remember what it was. I honestly don't care that much about precedence. Is it like C? No, I mean, we definitely changed some stuff around like C. That from C. But of course, people who want C will be like, oh, this is different. But we have stronger type checking than C, so if you do something in a precedent that's not expected, it's much more likely that you'll get a compiler error from us. How do macros do differentiation? By modifying the code, right? Let's actually put this down here. So code search and replace is an example. It should be A, B, 1, right? So like maybe we could look up some examples of what people did in Lisp with, are there any crazy Lisp bros who have favorite examples of Lisp macros transforming code in a useful way that is not implementing a domain-specific language? Because we're not interested in that, right? But like, I don't know, maybe every time you call a particular function, we're going to insert something to check the result or something, right? I don't know. Like that kind of a thing. we're running out of... I don't want to insert an actual Unicode alpha here because then Emacs will always prompt me about what format to save it in, and that makes me sad. As long as A or B not equal to 0 works without parentheses. I mean, why would you put not equal to 0 in that case? In Lisp, though, you would invoke the macro on S expressions that would not be valid semantically in the base language for the most part. Yeah, well, so that's the thing, is that is a restriction that we have mostly. So, but that's the thing, is we're reevaluating, should we keep that restriction? Like, to make macros powerful, should we do that? Okay, also, you know, I know Rust has macros, and there's lots of people out there who have crabs. So, like, what are some Rust people's favorite examples of what a macro does for them? I haven't looked at that in a long time. Like, I think someone tried to show me a macro example at one point and just my eyes glazed over, but I could maybe try harder to understand, right? Okay, Mr. Elfman says Rust macros are really useful. Okay, cool. What's a good practical example of what they do? And then if we can't at least do that, because Rust at this point is like from 10 years ago, right? I mean, it's being incrementally improved over time, but like, you know. So if we can't at least do stuff from a programming language that was public 10 years ago, and then then you need to question whether that's in line with what you want to do, right? So crates.io creates HTML macro. What is this? Use HTML macro to main let component equal. All right, there's not a lot over there. Like, look at the dude. 60% of my screen real estate is completely wasted. But there's a little scroll bar here because we can't see all the code. Like, what is wrong with people? Zoom in. Okay, that's scale invariant, so that's great. Okay, so you can interpolate text variables. Okay. I mean, that's an idea for something that we could do in macros. That is a practical example, right? C, string interpolation. Like, we could do this and just see how ugly it is and whatever, right? Okay. So let HTML is... So the exclamation point means macro, I think, right? So HTML, bang, and then I guess this is the argument to the macro. So how does this work in terms of the system? So after you invoke a macro, do you always have braces? And then is everything in here unparsed? And it passes it to there? Like this... So I wouldn't even call this a macro. Exactly. We would do this in a totally different way that I wouldn't call a macro. Like, we can already do this. You would just say, like, run. You would say insert arrow string expand HTML blah, right? I wouldn't call that a macro. So This is the thing: is different concepts have different names in different programming languages, right? I mean, maybe it's implemented via a macro, but the way that we would naturally implement this would not be via a macro. In Lisp, a simple example of a transforming macro is the threading macro that puts the return value of a function into a first argument of the next function, i.e. arrow open. Let's paste this before it goes off the chat. So this is the suggestion that's coming in about Lisp. Arrow open file.text find some string. Okay, so this is like doing like what the C# people like to do. Whatever. What's the name for that in C#? I forgot already. My brain is in Lisp land now. But you know, the thing where you dot call everything. Link, yeah. Yeah, I think link is not good. I also think this is probably not good, but as a programming style, but it's an example. So you're sort of, this expands essentially to like, let f be open file.text, right? And then I don't know what syntax we're typing in here, but basically find f some string, right? So that's what we're saying that would expand into. You find it readable. Yeah, it's kind of readable, but you're making horrendous data structures just to like make a certain thing work a certain way. Like the problem with link is it pushes you further in the object-oriented direction in terms of the design of your data, and you don't actually want that for a performance system. Like link just seems to me like a waste of time, like a complete waste of time. But I know some people like it, but those are just not my kind of programmers. I don't know what to say. Okay. But that is an example of like, okay, we got some calls and we're doing a thing. Now there's definitely some challenges here. Like, so in Lisp, you just have one return value. We don't. We could have 0 return values or, you know, 7 and like, so maybe you actually look this up? Question mark? I don't know. That once you start looking up arbitrary symbols, that starts feeling more like a metaprogram thing to me, although who knows. Maybe it shouldn't just be a metaprogram thing. Maybe that's how we make macros more powerful. Do I not like the pipe operator either? Whose pipe operator? What language are we talking about? In Lisp, you can have multiple return values as a list. That's one return value that is a list containing multiple values. You can do that in every language. Lean 4 has very powerful macros. Someone link me a good lean example. Pipe in F#. Oh, yeah. So you mean that's a link style thing? I mean, I just don't think that's a good style of program. Like, you already have sequential operations as multiple lines of code in a row that you type. Like, why would you have more sequential? Right? Because then you string together like 7 things, and then you want to add something in the middle that doesn't conform to that API, and now you have to stupidly change the thing because you want to link style it. It's just dumb. it's one of these things where it seems cool, but the actual utility of it is very low. And you end up wasting time and energy making things go that way, right? I don't like it at all. I mean, that said, my job is to make the macros here powerful enough that if someone wanted to implement that, they probably could, right? It's not my job to prevent you from programming in ways that I don't like, but I'm not going to design for Link. I think it's stupid. Have you seen how underscores in functions work in agdas? If you have if then else, then you can write if fx then y lc. What? So it's like an operator overload. It's like an operator overload for if then else, is what you're telling me. And I assume it's an overload based on the type of the condition. I just don't want to get into that. I don't think that's worth it. Like I like seeing an if then else in my code and knowing what that means. Have you ever written braid code where you just wished you could have C macro style functionality where you're repeating your code a lot? No, I don't. If I'm repeating code a lot, I think that's bad, but braid is in C++, so I also don't understand the question. The multiple values are distinct values, not a list. Okay, well, then you would have to figure out how that works in the context of a macro like that, right? The underscore tells Agda you can substitute an expression there. Okay, I don't know anything about that language at all, so I would just have to see how that works in the context of the rest of the programming language to really understand. Okay, lean for example. God damn it, they did it again, dude. Like, at least give me a little thing that I can drag. This is too thin. Give me a little thing I can drag out. Like, what is this the new style that everybody does? Like, you realize I'm on a 16 by 10 monitor, right? Control plus will work on this site. Okay. Great. Yeah, it works by scaling proportionally. I guess we'll make the text really big. What capabilities do macros give you that's not already covered by compile time code and constants? Well, that's kind of the question. That's the living up to potential question that's in these notes, is we're determining that. Like, let's just see what applications we can find. And then here's like 3. So I don't actually know what the hell we really use macros for right now. Sometimes, okay, actually, 1, substitute for closures, which we may eventually have, right? 2, iterator overloads, or iterator replacement. Probably good, and we should keep it, right? So if we were going to delete macros, you have to have a story about, like, how do I define iterators now? Right? That doesn't sound so good. Okay, anyway, let's read this. The grammar of arithmetic expressions with addition, blah, 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 blah. Okay. BNF. declare syntax. Okay, this looks exactly like, you know, bison or whatever the fuck. I mean, not exactly. It's different, but it looks exactly like bison. Um, so what am I supposed to be looking at here? Macro rules. Okay, I see some backticks. Okay, so is this... Okay, so we're telling the parser how to interpret various things. The syntax keyword... Actually, I don't know. Is syntax a keyword in the language, extending the actual parser of the language, or is it like a thing that this is expanding, or that some other macro is? I don't know. See, I don't know lean to begin with, and so it's hard to know. Okay. It looks like it extends the syntax of the language, maybe. So backtick, arith, whatever. I mean, we're not doing a thing that extends the syntax of the language. So, if that's what this is, it's just sort of outside the scope of what we're looking at. Keyword to extend the parser. Okay, so yeah, we're not doing it this way. I guarantee you. We might do something else. So right now we have a code directive, right? And the code directive requires the thing after it to parse. You could imagine another directive that just requires tokens to parse, and it returns to you a code that is an array of the tokens, right? And then how do you know when you're done? Because you would like it not to have to be in parentheses. Maybe it works like here strings, right? With here strings, you say string and then done, and you might say tokens and then, you know, whatever keyword. And then as soon as we see that keyword, we stop. That's probably good. You're on the fence whether to have generic macros. You hate them, but understand usefulness and certain. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is they get messy. You know, even implementation wise, macros are, they're really messier than I wish they were, and they cause a lot of confusion internally to the compiler. So I wish I knew how to improve that. Like they sound easy, like what's the problem? And then you go do them and you're like, ugh, right? So I don't know. Rust proc macros work just like that. Yeah, so we're not doing that. Why is implementing a DSL a bad thing? Because a number of reasons. One, it means that now you can't parse out of order, right? So we compile our whole language out of order. Like there's no like header file that you have to include, right? There's no like whatever intro to a library that you have to compile before you can use the library. And that is nice because the programmer doesn't have to worry about that. And then also the compiler doesn't have to worry about it. So it can be faster in principle, right? Also though, like if you don't understand the code that you're looking at right now, how do you figure out how to understand the code that you're looking at? If somewhere random in this 300,000 line code base defines a thing that reparses the code, like it's very unfriendly. And This is a problem that Lisp had. In fact, some people theorize that this is one of the reasons Lisp burned out and is now very unpopular. I think there's plenty of other reasons, but one of them is hypothesized to be that because it got very trendy to do a DSL in Lisp because nobody likes Lisp syntax, right? Nobody reasonable. And then so everybody does their DSL and then nobody can understand anyone else's code, right? So we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Does compiling out of order mean you can't have circular module imports? No, it does not mean that. You're working on building a SaaS. Okay, that's where I stopped reading that comment. Can't you already make a DSL anyway? Yeah, it would just have to be inside a string directive, which I think is fine, right? Some people might not like that. I don't know. Okay. Here's an interesting thing. String interpolation. My mind was wandering and I realized something. Important example, since you would output code that reads arbitrary variables, which means we can't necessarily be hygienic about what variables we intend to read, right? So you could imagine that one way to get stricter in macros is like, and I thought about this for a while, so they have a parameter list just like any function, but then after the expand keyword maybe or something, you have another parameter list of like, these are the things I'm going to read, and then another parameter list of maybe like, these are variables I'm going to define, right? And then that just lets you be much more structured and clear about what's going on. And the problem with that is then you can't necessarily do a string interpolation macro unless you say like reads star, right, for everything or whatever. I don't know. All right, I'm getting a little bit hungry. I'm going to heat up yesterday's Brussels sprouts in the microwave. That'll take a couple minutes or something. While I'm doing that, if anyone else has favorite macro examples, whisper them to me. Whisper the links because they'll scroll off and I won't find them otherwise. If you can. Did Twitch put constraints on whispering now? Are you allowed to do that? A well-known person with crabs. Okay, we'll look at this. This is one of the things we'll look at. All right, back in a minute. I need to heat up some food. So obviously the war on Christmas is still being waged because I got from Whole Foods these Seasons Grazings assorted nuts. And I know my lighting in here is dim. But not only does it say Seasons Grazings, which could be for like Kwanzaa or anything for all I know. But like the war on Christmas has proceeded to the point where you can't even use red as the color scheme for the Christmas food. Right? This is, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's basically cyan gradienting to purple. Okay? And maybe that's what's happening, is it's the next step in the war on Christmas. Or maybe, so, you know, if you go to a print house and you give them a Photoshop file in like RGB, their thing will print your shit with completely incorrect colors because despite the fact that it's an industry that's been around for decades, they don't like auto convert to CMYK. I mean, they'll auto convert to CMYK, but it like gets the gamma wrong on all the colors and stuff. So like that's what this looks like, is if you had a Christmas label, but you gave an RGB file to the guy down at the Kinko's and he printed the RGB file. And like, for me to give them the correct file, all I have to do is figure out how to convert RGB to CMYK myself, which is easy. You know, once you figure it out what the right menu options are, it's fine. But every single auto conversion software that I've ever seen in that entire industry fucks everything up completely. Dude, it's astonishing. Okay, these nuts don't look very good. Sad. At LambdaConf, did I see or ask about any interesting macro examples? I did not. Maybe this year. I may be at LambdaConf again this year doing something more involved and extensive than I did last year. It is not finalized, but we are talking about it. It's an easy thing for me because it's not very far from where I live. Someone wants me to ban Foobar721 for saying a word that starts with R. I mean, I heard that's legal now. I heard as of this last election, it's legal now. As long as they didn't say Christmas. Yeah. Have I seen the Better Software Conference? Yep. Hopefully that'll be interesting. I don't think they've even announced the date yet, right? Or have they yet? When I went to the page, it looked to me like they hadn't announced the date. So it's hard to think about it. Is it online only? Because if it's not, how do you get these people to commit to being at the conference without telling them when it is? Do all these people have absolutely no life and they're just like, sure, I'll be at Sweden at an arbitrary time in the next year? How is inline assembly currently handled? We have an x64 only assembler. If you're on ARM, you can't quite do assembly right now. There is a plan for how to fix that. And I like the plan. However, the plan requires some thinking, and maybe we'll do that thinking also. I don't want to I mean, maybe we could keep thinking about macros. Yeah, let's keep thinking about macros. But we basically want to do equivalent thinking about the future of inline assembler. What makes ARM hard? Well, we're not using LLVM to parse assembly language. God, no. No way. We do not use LLVM as an integral component of the compiler because it sucks too much. So, you know, we only use it as an optimizer, basically. Do we emit LLVM IR? No. Even if you're using LLVM, we don't like emit IR. You can get that to happen, I guess. There's like, you know, we give you the little, you know, debug strings or target strings that you can pass in. And one of the target strings is like, please output IR or whatever. But that is not an intermediate stage for us because it's just too slow to do that. And annoying and horrible. Like when in the earliest versions of the compiler, I tried that. I tried like, hey, I'm going to output text IR and I'm going to pipe that into LLVM. And it was horrible. Like LLVM was just crashing all over the fucking place because they don't handle incorrect input like at all. It's a nightmare. Do not ever do it that way. And they also don't document, so it's very hard to know what correct input looks like. So, disaster, yeah. How do I have 46% of all viewership in software and game development? Because reasons. I mean, there's not that many serious programmers on Twitch, right? Who is there? There's George Hotz. Primogen doesn't really program. I don't know if he streams in software and game development. He's more like commentary on programming, right? Soding, okay, yeah. Yeah. But like, it's probably a one-digit number of like real serious programmers that you see regularly on Twitch. And you can't even count me in that because it's not like I've streamed regularly in quite some time. Like all those guys we just mentioned stream way more than me. Casey, right? There's like, you can name the individual people. Whereas if you're like, who on Twitch streams first-person shooters? It's like, you'll never get to the end of that list. Did I check out C++ reflection proposals? No. No, I don't use anything really past C++ 11. I don't care about the language anymore. I've given up on it. So, if it's past 11, it doesn't go to heaven. right? I just think of the C++ standard as being like deeply embarrassing at this point. But it is what it is. It's fine. I mean, you know, this compiler's in C++, so that's something. How about C23? I'm not following that either. I'm not that interested in C anymore. Like C's primary value is as a smaller, simpler historical language. And like they started adding all sorts of crap to it too, and it's just like, ugh. What do I think of Swift as general purpose? I would never use Swift because the compile speeds are so incredibly slow, and it doesn't appear to provide any benefit for that incredible amount of slowness. I mean, I don't really know the language, but I've looked at Swift code and I'm just like, yeah, looks like any other programming language. Except it takes 500 times as long to compile as anyone else, so have fun with that. Are we going to re-implement the C++ parts? Yeah, eventually, for sure. Well, as sure as anything is about the future. It's just a big job because it's a complicated program. So, like when we initially release the language publicly, it is highly likely, more than 90% probability, it will be the C++ compiler that we release. Okay. What if I want to write string interpolation? Right? Maybe I did this already. I don't think so. How would we do this? So for example, we could have a program. What's a good program? Right? So that would be an interpolated print. Can we do this right now? And if we can, how ugly is it? Let's do it one piece at a time, right? Let's just do that part. Why not instead reserve a register like R15? Because that's very costly. Like your function could be 20 million things long. Like I don't think that's worth it. And here's the thing. I believe that, going through pain to optimize out or, reduce the cost of calling a function. I mean, obviously, anytime something is a lower cost, that's great. But what are you paying for that? And what are you gaining? And I think these days you're not gaining very much. Because procedure call overhead of a known procedure, right? Like of something that's constant at compile time, is just regular straight line code with no indirections. It's the kind of thing modern CPUs do very, very, very well. And it basically gets hidden in parallel with other operations that you're doing, right? So procedures don't really cost anything, procedure calls on modern CPUs. And so if you're going to say, I'm going to take up an entire register for this thing, that I'm not sure that's a good trade-off. Yeah, and someone says functions with 20 million parameters don't care about a single register. Yeah, like this is an optimization that would be only effective or only matter for simple procedure calls anyway, like procedures that have one argument or two integer argument, something small like that. And the thing is, those are the calls most likely to be inlined, which is the other thing that happens all the time now, right? Small procedures tend to be inlined on modern CPU-based program. Well, yeah. So you're doing this optimization, and why, right? Why? Maybe in debug mode it could help. I don't see how. But at this point, it's like so tenuous, right? And you're still like, you have to take seriously like, oh, 1/16 of the registers is now gone, right? More than that, because some of the registers you can't use general purpose. It's so like, of 10% of your register space is gone. That doesn't sound good. Integer register space and not counting SIMD slots. Modern CPUs actually have a huge ton of registers, right? But in this very gimped x64 assembly language that we have, right, it's the problem is just, it's not how many registers there actually are. It's like, what do you know how to name from your program? And you're giving up one of the names. So it is not a trade-off that I would make. However, if you make your own language, you get to make those decisions, right? And you don't. It doesn't even have to be making your own whole language. Like if you make your own version of what is the ABI for some particular programming language, even that already exists, then you get to make those decisions and you get to see how they work out. So you don't have to believe me. You can try it. You are unsure how true this is. Did you listen to what I just said? Are you talking to me? I literally just said that CPUs have tons of registers and the problem is what you can name. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Okay. Is there a more direct way to throw money at me? Buying the games, buying copies of the games for your friends. If you're talking large amounts of money, then we could talk, but regular amounts of money, those are the suggestions. Will the Sokoban game have tons of merch? I don't know. Merch is not really a profitable thing, usually. I mean, in some extreme cases it is, like when they sell Minecraft toys at Target or whatever, but yeah. Merch is just a nod and a thank you to A-tier fans. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. And it's just, we've always been so small that we never really had the bandwidth to do it. There are some developers that do anyway, despite being small. So like Supergiant does it and stuff. It's just, I've always felt very pressed to just get work done on the game and the compiler and all this. So it's how I choose to focus. But who knows? Who knows? All right. Is it good if games are on Game Pass? I mean, it depends on, like, when you put things on Game Pass, the structure for that is you make a deal with Microsoft, right? Where they pay you some flat fee. And is that good? It depends how much is that fee and how valuable is a dollar to you at that moment, and how many people end up downloading your game. Like, it's a very contextual question. How do they figure out the fee? I don't know. They probably just try to lowball you, and then you have to negotiate them up. That's how most of these things work. But I haven't talked to Game Pass. They don't even answer my emails at Microsoft anymore. That's true for like every indie developer I know personally. There might be some whose emails they answer, but they don't answer my emails anymore, and they don't answer lots of people's emails. So I don't even know. I don't even know how to do anything with Microsoft anymore. What do we think about no code, low code? It's fine. I mean, I think there could be better systems for that than there are, and maybe that's where LLMs will come in. It's fine as long as you're not supposed to be a professional programmer, right? Like there's context for everything, so it's fine. Do I talk to Phil Fish at all? No. I have not seen Phil Fish since... If I have, I don't remember, but I don't remember seeing him probably since like 2011 or 2012. I don't think he's very active in video games now, because, Some people are in it to win it. Like, I am just deeply interested in games. I have been since I was a little kid, and I'm here to do this stuff. And regardless of how hard it gets or how much it costs or, makes me bankrupt or whatever, I'm in it. I'm in it for working on video games, right? That is not true of a lot of people. A lot of people are in it to like be famous or popular or make money or whatever. And those people, either they get what they wanted or they don't get what they wanted. And either way, they tend to bail out after some time. Right? Because if you were in it to get rich and you actually sell an indie game and you get rich, which has happened. It's less often now, but it has happened quite a few times. I know a bunch of people that's happened to. It's so hard to make games. If your motivation was to have money and now you have money, you're like, why would I go through that shit again? Right? If you make a game and you completely faceplant and nobody buys it and your goal was to make money, you're going to be like, oh, maybe this is just not for me. Maybe it's a bad way to make money and I should go somewhere else. So both of those things have I know people fitting both of those descriptions. I seem to be in it to make compilers. The compilers is a side job. Macmillan said he was still drawing. Well, Ed didn't have anything to do with Fez that I know of. No, Ed is working on a new game. I have inside information of this. So yeah, he's working on Mugenics. I guess people know that. I didn't want to say it still. Like, Mugenics has been in development since literally a trillion years ago. I have Mugenics mugs that I got from PAX when Tommy was manning the booth. When like Mugenics was a team meet game that was probably 2011 or 2012. No shot Mugenics turns out good. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know anything about what it's like now. I saw some stuff that they were posting like years ago in the Ed Tyler version of the game, right? And it's just, look, the thing you got to understand about game development is there's times when there's a lot of momentum and then there's times when there's not. And sometimes when you're just getting started or you're like rebooting the game creatively, there's a lot of momentum because you're making things happen a certain way and it's showing up on screen and you're excited about it. And then at some point it's like, oh man, I got to just do all the work to finish this game. And you're not necessarily going to blog post about that because it's just like fixing a giant mountain of bugs and whatever. You'll sub if I compile this program. This program won't compile yet because this thing doesn't work. But here's what we could do. We're going to return an array of string. We could return something else besides strings. We'll think about that in a minute. Like, we might want to create identifiers actually, but first we'll do strings. And we're just going to say return. We're not even really doing the thing yet. All right. So how many mistakes? Why do I have so many windows again? What is, oh, there's lean DSL, HTML macro. Proc, we never looked at proc macro workshop. We'll bring this up again in a little bit. But, okay, so Undeclared identifier print, because I didn't import basic. My fatal flaw. All right, new line in string constant. Wait, what? I thought I... Did I... What happened there? I thought I finished that line. All right. Hello, sailor. Great. Now, here's what we're going to do. Names. String names.allocator equals temp. We're going to... and then I don't remember. So there's two things we could do. So also, we don't just want to do the variable names, because we also want the new format, because we're generating a print style format string, right? So we're going to go format and vars. All right. Okay. We're going to have a string builder for the format. All right. So in here, we're actually going to do our thing. And I don't remember. We want to like find character from left in string. Now this is not, these are not good names. Because like left and right are sort of, you know, if you're in a right to left language, these names don't make sense, right? So maybe we have to change these names eventually, but nevertheless, I persist. So I could do this split from left. The problem is, what if it's backslashed, right? Because we want to let people backslash the $sign probably. Or maybe it's $sign. How should we... Oh, no, it shouldn't be backslash, because backslashes in string constants are annoying, right? So we'll do $sign, and if the next character after is a $sign. Okay, we'll do it that way. We can change this later if we regret it. Okay, the point being... also, here's the thing. Right now, I did this style of format string down here because it's convenient. But the problem is, what if I don't want any space here, right? Maybe I could put like $0 or something, because otherwise you have to do like this thing like some programming languages do. And I guess if you do that, you could put arbitrary code in there, but I'm not sure that that's good style, you know? But then it stands out more. So what, let's take a vote. What should we do? Do we want to do this, or do we want to do the straight heterosexual, just put the name? You guys like the braces. Because you all are Python programmers. You know what? Here's the thing. The braces is extra parsing, so we're not going to bother to do that yet. We'll just do it this way, and then we can talk about whether to add braces. Because the braces, I'm not sure has much impact on whether the macro can like do the job, right? It's more like, what are you allowed to put in the string? All right. So let's just do it this way, and then we'll bike shed over braces later. Okay, so we're going to go while one. Is this the right thing to do? I don't know. We're just going to do it. Index is find index from. We're going to say remainder, or let's call this input. I'm going to say s is input because we're going to modify s a bunch. And we're going to go index is find index from left of input and dollar sign. Oh God, Emacs gets confused by dollar signs for some reason. I don't know why. Like, it's just in the frickin'... Oh, God damn it. I was able to fix this before, but now I'm not... It's being confused by... No, it's not the hash. It's the dollar sign. See, if I put another quote, I guess I just do that. It's fucking stupid. Oh, wait, it's still confused. Oh. No, it's still confused. Oh, because of the parenthesis. All right. That's fun. That's fun that we have an extra challenge because we're all about dollar signs. Let's do this. Okay. So we're just going to keep that Emacs confusion all in one place. We probably could fix that. I don't know if that was in, because I'm still using a really old .emacs that someone just sent me. And like I refuse to look at or work on that kind of thing because it's derailing. So yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna find index from left. If index is equal to -1, append builder whatever's left, and break. Okay. Otherwise. If so we want to say s sub index +1 is equal to $, but of course if s dot count is greater than index +1, right? So double dollar means just output $1. Okay, so no matter what, we want to append everything up to the $. Right, so let's go split from... I guess we could use split from left, right? Instead of just find index, because we actually want the string anyway. So let's do this. Let's go found left, right. Okay. Okay. Split from left. If not found, we append s and break. Okay. Not input. Oh, not input. That's going to be bad. S. Okay. If no, not S. Oh yeah, S. Okay. Append left, right, and then So does, I forget, left, right, which contains all of S after the byte. Particular occurrence of byte will not be containing neither left or right. Okay, great. If right and right sub 0 is dollar, double dollar just means to output an ASCII dollar. Okay, so append builder dollar. I think we can do it by character. S equals advance right comma 1, and then we loop back around and keep going, right? Else we want to parse here's the question. Do we actually pull in the lexer, right? Because we want to parse an identifier here. So we have like starts identifier. Let's do that. It'll be fun. So let's actually namespace that just for clarity. I don't know. If lexer starts identifier. Okay, wait. A dollar at the end of the string log error should we just assert? A dollar at the end of the input string is illegal, right? Return. We'll just break. We'll return something for you in that case. Okay, so now we don't have to worry about this. If it's a dollar, we do this. Otherwise, if it starts an identifier, else see, here's my problem with how we've been doing this, which maybe isn't that big of a problem, but because we could track this separately, but I would like to tell the user like the index in the string of where this error is, and we're not tracking the index right now. We could, because we have all these left-right chunks, and we could just increment an integer by the lengths of those. Right now, we'll just have it be a little bit suboptimal. Invalid text after a... I hope Emacs doesn't freak out about that. Maybe it's just the quotation mark. Invalid text after a dollar sign, whatever, comma, right. Okay. So, if we start an identifier, make ident. So we return a token here. Parse ident. See, I don't want to... I guess we'll have a lexer. No, because that goes... see, this doesn't take an arbitrary string. All right, here, let's just do this. Continues identifier. We'll just use that. Okay. So we know count will be at least 1. Wait. Let's do this. I was at first going to advance this every character, and then I'm like, oh, that's not good. So we're going to do this. We assert counts greater than or equal to 1. So split by, is it split from left? No. Did we not use split in this case? No. I thought there was an index. Oh, we have find index. All right. So anyway, what we want to do is we're going to say name is right, name.count is count. We're going to array add to names, comma, name. All right. And we're going to go s equals advance right by count. That sounds okay, doesn't it? Here we'll break. We're not building the format string, by the way. So we're going to have to add that in here. But first we'll see that we get all the names. All right, so we split by $. We break. If not good, we append the left string. Okay, if we get a $, we do this. Otherwise, we parse an identifier. Okay, this is not good. That would have been an infinite loop. Okay. So all right. This is turning into a chunk of code, isn't it? All right. So format is literally not going to be anything. Semicolon expected. What? Woolly. All right. Hey, look, it produced name and value, which is the right thing, and I will prove it because cowabunga-oriented programming. There we go. So 50% of the time it works the first time. Wait, why do we have a did I append stuff to the format string? Oh, no. Right. Because we're not, okay. Okay. So now let's put stuff in the string builder, right? Wait, we are, right. I just said we're not building the format string. These things build the format string. So what is our format? Let's put quotes around it. The thing we're not doing is we're not putting percents in there when we do a variable. All right. Like that. Okay. So format, whatever is whatever with a new line at the end. And then the things, right? And so the code we're going to print format comma. Okay, now the thing is, we actually want to convert new lines and stuff, right? Like, because we want this to be code, we want to like back all that stuff out. Let's not worry about that for a second. But we're going to print this and then actually maybe instead of, I guess it's useful to have the array of names for other reasons. For other reasons. But maybe that's useful. I don't know. Okay, so let's do this. So that's going to be our code, and we're going to put in format and argument string, and argument string is going to be what's the opposite of it's going to be join, right? So we say join with before first. So we're going to join names, comma, space, true. Because the format string goes first. All right. So, oh. Now maybe we just return the code, right? What did I do? Is that wrong? Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we're saying print whatever is whatever with whatever. Oh, we have two commas for some reason. Why do we? Oh, because I have one in here. All right. So now we just have this new line issue, this pesky new line issue. And maybe we have in program print a thing that backs out the string. Do we have this somewhere? I'd swear I wrote this. Like, I swear I wrote a thing that looks for any non-printable characters and turns them back. Will the string $name is $value be in our data or whatever? Right now it would be because I think as long as we get to any stage of code evaluation, it means we pack that into our data. And we don't like detect later that the string went away because it was only used at compile time. That's something that we might do in the long term, but for now it's like that's just not a priority for me, getting rid of that. If you're first splitting the string from the left, wouldn't the not right statement never fire, since that would imply $ is never found? No, because $ is not in the split result. So left is everything before the $, right is everything after. So if $ is the very last character, then right will be the empty string. Yeah? Yeah. Now, I think for the purposes of error messages and stuff anyway, like, we actually want to do this substitution here. Like, you know, I don't know what to call this function, not reverse. Convert escape codes back to ASCII. Right? I guess I never wrote that function. Does anyone happen to have this? What's the difference between split from left and split from right? Because if there's multiple occurrences of the $, which one are you picking first? Control characters. Yeah, but these are typically called like escape sequences, right? Okay, this is also going to be all right. Let's just write this, and it'll be dumb right now. All right. For I don't know. This probably could be a for loop. While count is less than input.count. Like, we basically want to go to a point, right? So let's just say instead of count, index. It's confusing having all the counts. All right, index. C is input index. For now, we're just going to do this is a huge waste because the compiler just converted all this stuff. Now we are converting it back. Psi. Okay. So if C is less than, you know, where do the visible characters start? 30, 31. I think we do backslash integer, don't we? Pretty sure. Okay. We're just going to do this because we only care about the new line. We're just specking out what the final version of this would look like. Convert escape sequences back to ASCII. Right. Okay. So appended index. I hate this fucking slice function. It's named that because they call it that in Go, but I don't. What the hell? I thought we had. All right. Where is that file? Why are you not telling me where the file is? Oh, it's in Sokoban. Wait, what? That's why I can't find anything. Why is there a helpers in? All right. Yeah, so it's index and count. Got to think about our off by ones here. Yeah, all right, so and then at the end we do this. Okay. So if C is less than 31, we do that. Otherwise, nothing. And we have to advance index, right? Because I don't think we need to do any multi-character binary thing. I don't know. I'm sure that was not great. Oh, we didn't define builder. Appended in, oh, I changed the name from append to appended. I can't even decide on the same line what it's called. Still can't decide. All right. It didn't do it. It did, however, give us the full string. All right, so let's run a test of just this function. So we're going to put a new line in the middle to make sure it works. And we're going to make sure we see this. All right. Wait, it worked. So, wait. Oh! Wait, no? Why didn't it... Did I do something dumb? Wait, it worked. So why? Oh, see, I saw the quote down here and I was like, oh, that's terrible. That's literally our new line that I put in. Let's not even put that for now. God, that's so dumb. All right, great. So here we go. Name is value. So here's our print function. As you can see, this is what you would type to print this normally. Okay, so now that we have that, I guess we return the code. And we're doing it as a string. We could have, remember I said in the beginning, maybe I want to do it as identifiers, because we could have done it as like structured nodes. It's easier and lazier to do strings a lot of the time. If we did it as structured nodes, then we wouldn't have had to convert back the escape characters in the string. However, then you wouldn't necessarily have a readable thing to refer to when debugging. Although at some point we may do a thing that does that when you give us nodes. We just don't do it right now. Okay, so anyway, we've done all this. We're just going to return the code, right? So extract variable names to result is a string. All right, so print call. And, you know, we have more structured results in the middle if we want them. So there's our call. So now we just have to, let's get rid of this. We didn't need that. We just have to insert the code. And I changed how this works, and I don't actually remember. Do we literally not use this? Oh yeah, we backtick it. This is a weird thing is we backtick it. All right, so we say, I think I can get away with the, I think we just do that, right? No, we don't backtick it. What? How do we do this now? This won't work. Because we're a hygienic macro, right? So we don't see these. So like I need to get the scope of the caller, and that used to be easy. It probably is still easy. I don't remember how to do it. I thought we backtick the insert. Maybe I didn't do it that way. It's got to become a scope then, but this is not going to be right. It's something like this. Dude, I haven't. Sometimes I change these things. So in the very beginning, it was literally like there was a different directive. It was like insert local or whatever. Let's go look in our parser. This is how often I do macros, guys. Insert internal. I guess we still do that. Okay, wait. Internal means here. Now I'm really confused. How do I get the scope of the caller in the macro? Please change to insert scope. Okay. So insert internal is just insert scope, whatever. All right, here's what we can do. This is really stupid. Maybe that's what I decided is how it should work. I don't love that. Why are we saying, oh, yeah, we don't want that. We just want that. All right. There you go. We have interpolated strings. Congratulations. Now, if you put cowabunga, you start to ask, how do we make the error message better, right? While performing an insert, undeclared identifier cowabunga. I mean, that's not that bad. The problem is, you'll notice there's no line 158 here right now. Which kind of sucks. Like we kind of want to say, here's where the macro invocation happens. So that would be a thing that we would make sure happens. But yeah. So there you go. Interpolated strings. Ship it. I mean, that was not the worst in the world. It's a relatively simple piece of functionality. It's quite a few lines, but I mean, it's implemented at user level, right? So we're literally parsing the string and all that. I mean, I'm kind of, so in terms of the overall design of macros, I'm kind of happy with this. This was fine. There's other things that I know I wouldn't be fine with. So I think what I kind of want to do is just go back and keep doing macros until I hit some that are totally not fine. For context, the Rust format macro is 1,000 lines. Yeah, but I don't know what that does. If we were going to add a bunch of features and all that, this would get longer too, right? So, you know. There's been whole multi-year debates as to how to make this satisfying with D. I thought D did a lot of like, don't they call it like mix-ins in D, right? And it's the same thing. So, I mean, they don't have this level of compile time execution, right? They have limited compile time execution. So I'm not sure what that actually turns into when you go and do something like this. But does $$ work properly? Good question. Let's find out. It's not really our priority. I mean, we could ship this for fun as an example somewhere. But like our goal wasn't like to ship this, but dollars look like all the time. I don't know, right? There you go. Yeah, it works. And the great thing about this is this gets all our print functionality, right? So we could actually do this. We could print the whole context, for example, right? That'll work. Like, print is very powerful compared to C or C++ in this language. So, yeah. Think you can remove the scope thing? No. If we remove this, we won't find the variables again. Because again, it's a hygienic macro. So by default, insert means here. So this is the only thing I would say is I don't know if I love this hack. That's really the only thing I would say. But, you know, that is there. It is there. Expand kind of implies that the color scope should be there. A good point. Should expand indicate how to refer to the color scope in some way. It probably would just make a dummy code anyway, but that's fine. Like you could say like expand scope, right? Or whatever. I'm not going to do this right now because there's quite a few. Wow, I just lost my voice. There are quite a few ideas for what syntactically could go around here. And so, but that's one option, is that you somehow say what the scope is, and then we wouldn't have to have this, right? Can you call print from another macro? Yeah. But here's the thing is, you'll be getting what's in scope of that macro at that time, right? Maybe it changes the default of insert from local to color scope. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's something you want to default, because you might want both. But, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess if you can specify it either way, then being able to default it is probably fine, right? Because then you could specify it back. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised I haven't written this before, but okay, this is an example of something that I would like people to do at user level. I remember I was on Twitter asking about features and someone was like, hey, I want to be able to do string interpolation. And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea because of, you know, localization and all this stuff. And Tim Sweeney was like, I don't think it's a problem with localization. And I never understood why he thought it wouldn't be a problem. Because when you localize, this string goes into a database, right? The reason the language isn't designed to have this is when you localize, this goes into a database, right? And you've got 19 translations for different languages. Now you can't, now if you change the word name okay, first of all, you have to load the database at compile time, but we could do that. But then secondly, if you change this variable, like this is going to look like, you know, print, I don't know, loc of say name, or who knows what the fuck that looks like, right? So say things. Let's not even, because I don't want the word name to be in there. But the point is, now I changed this identifier because I'm just refactoring my code and cleaning it up. And it breaks because of a string that's in a database that is now getting expanded into code. I don't want that, right? That's why I think interpolation is not good for real programs, but you should be able to do it, right? In user level. Is Tim Sweeney interested in this language? I doubt it. His interest is much more in, freaky, perverted Lambda stuff. Kind of. Not exactly. That's not a correct descriptor, but, he likes structured transactional memory and like that kind of thing. For log prints, it's great and convenient. I mean, sure, yeah. But for very quick debug printing, you don't really need interpolation. Like you could just say, I think we did this at some point. I think we did like print var name or whatever, right? Like you could just do that and not have a string at all. But anyway, when I wake up tomorrow, maybe I'll copy this over to examples or something. It was a fun little thing to write. Let me save this because all these notes, all this thinking, like this. Okay, so this is the plan is we're just going to come back to this file once in a while and do more macros that do different things. And we're going to see what is hard to do, what can't we do, what feels ugly. And, that was an easy one. This one was fine. But, yeah, there will be some that are not fine. I'm going to make a file called macroexperiments.txt. And that's going to live on for a bit. Print var. Did we ship print var? I think we did, right? Print vars, yeah. So here's a different thing we could have done. I forgot that we had done this. I remember doing this on stream one time, right? So this is 155 lines, and you can like give some config. Dude, I don't remember doing all this, but did I write all this? I mean, I remember doing the basic thing. Maybe somebody else. No, I don't know. Anyway, you could say print vars and log vars, and we just have a lot of formatting options. You can see it's doing basically the same kind of stuff. It's like there's a string builder. How are we doing the insert? The arguments here are code because there's not a string. Dude, I don't really remember this. But I swear I wrote it. Yeah. So this, for quick logging or whatever, I would probably do something more like this. The thing is, this doesn't really give you you would maybe like to also have a format string, at which point maybe you want the interpolation version. I don't know. But this is an alternate way to do a similar thing. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. Like what I did, compile time features of language are so useful. Like what you did to make the functions just work with the Sokoban console. Yeah, no, it's great. It took some work, but it's good. Said I don't know where to give a talk about language design and game design now. Don't I think 99% of the audience is going to be on the internet anyway? How is the conference part important? Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's true. I am, since I said that, I'm probably going to go to LambdaConf and give a talk about some of the design decisions in this language. But yeah, I mean, I could just record it. It's just things have a certain energy when you do them for a live event, but I could organize a local live event and just give a speech, right? Yeah. I mean, that might be where things are going. I was talking to a friend about this a few weeks ago. It's like conferences kind of have to answer this question now in the age of YouTube. Like, why? What is their value add over people just individually recording stuff and watching it? And that's sort of the open question for all these conferences to deal with. Go to LambdaConf and spend an hour telling the audience why functional programming is dog shit. Well, last time, my session last time was a little shorter than I wished. It was only half an hour, but I definitely made very clear that this was not a functional language during that time. That's for sure. But yeah, next time it'll be like, why? Why is it not a functional language? And why are things the way they are? Why is there something instead of nothing? You know, that kind of thing. You probably would expect it inside BASIC because if you want to quickly print vars. Yeah, I mean, the thing. Oh, it looks like I got some whispers that I didn't notice. So we'll check those for links. Sorry, guys, for not noticing. The thing is, we're trying not to put everything in the universe into BASIC just because we want your program to still be kind of spry. Kind of spry, right? And so, but it's fine. Like having one import for print vars in your program, if you want to do this, is fine, right? But yeah, with BASIC, our goal is it should look good and be understandable and pleasant to look through. It shouldn't look like fucking GNU libc. Oh my god. Or, you know, Microsoft's libc++. Like all these things are horrible. So it should look good and be nice in that way. But then also lightweight, and you should be able to just hack it and make your own if you want, right? Or you should be able to run completely without BASIC, which you can. So those are all things that are very difficult to do in C and very easy here because we designed for them from the beginning. Right, like if you ask anyone who's in the beta, you know, are they scared of the code in BASIC? They probably will say no, unless they're a very beginner programmer. Because it's really, I mean, you know, like what does it look like? It's like, you know, well, that's some parameters. You know, alloc, free, realloc, create heap. I mean, maybe those are just glue codes, so they don't count. But like, you know, get a field from a struct. Hey, should this be in BASIC? So this is like, you know, a runtime thing. Min and max. is something a scalar because we use that in type checking for these things. Although I probably want, this is a very heavyweight way to do this, so I don't love it. You know, just some utility functions here. Temporary allocator, temporary storage, new array. You know, it's just like this is extremely unscary code, I guess is what I'm saying, right? There's just like, I don't know why this is in here. Maybe it's fine. You know, every once in a while I look back and I'm like, should we cut some stuff? Clamp to another integer type. Should this be in a separate module? Maybe. Do we use it in here? Oh, you know what? We might be able to get rid of system time now. Because I think I deleted... Like, these are operating system things. Yeah, like maybe I can just remove that. Dude, the European cores are killing me. So, you know, that's not the only file here. So like print is another file. There's, you know, there's like 12 or 15 files, but it's like, it's an understandable amount of code that is not crazy, unlike libc. What do I think about not having to write code before code block when passing code to procedure that takes code? So the problem with that is we parse independently of semantics, which is generally considered to be a good thing for a programming language. So classically in C, it doesn't really work this way. You can't parse C unless you know what all the type defs are, right? And so you have to parse strictly in order and do the type defs and stuff. Here, it's a fundamental design decision that we can parse code. I just did a deprecation sweep, and for some reason I didn't see this. Maybe because it's so small. So if this all succeeds, we'll look at deleting that as well. But the point being, we need to just be able to parse code without knowing what it refers to. And so imagine that we're trying to compile your function or whatever, some code, and the thing that you're calling, we haven't even loaded it yet, right? So we can't like look at it. I mean, maybe it's going to be something that you generate from a string, even this thing that we're calling that takes a code argument. And so there's no way that we don't know it that we could know that if you haven't generated it yet. And so it just, things become very gnarly and hairy if you start doing that kind of a thing, right? So that we're not going to do. But you know, you could imagine something like a one character thing instead of saying hash code, right? You could imagine even that like it's just like hash with a space after it. Like that's a little bit better, and then some code. I don't know. But this is all dovetails with that question of like, let's put x64, not equals. Like, is it legal to have code that doesn't parse in some contexts? And that's just something we need to figure out. I feel like no. I feel like the move is to finish the programming language without doing weird stuff like that. But we need macros to be good, right? We need them to be good. All right. So everything worked. Let's try getting rid of this as well. I feel like some people are going to use that, but we'll see. Maybe it's gone. Bro, this computer is so slow. It took 10 seconds to do that. Why? Oh my God. All right. Socialism cores can be disabled. Someone said you can't actually disable all of them. Like there's always at least one alive. It's like the Tai Chi, the yin yang, right? Inside yang there is yin, right? Inside a prospering capitalist computer, there is the seeds of socialist rot. I can disable core parking. What is core parking? Why even buy Intel at this point? Don't. Do not buy Intel CPUs until they get a lot better. I didn't realize when we bought these were like the last 3 or 4 machines that we bought at our company. And I just hadn't been paying that much attention to CPUs because I had a lot of other things to think about. And yeah. All right, so these are going to go. Wait. Yeah. Remove get system time and get time. So I got part of it, but not the rest of it. The whole, these were deprecated a while back or whatever. And so a big part of the next beta is just a lot of this stuff that was deleted and that was deprecated before, right? And then there's some fixes as well. Got to have some bug fixes. Spoilers. All right. Why? What happened to my, pinned to whatever? What happened to all my pinned stuff over here, dude? All right, whatever. Okay, we'll do this as add the macro experiments file an ongoing mini project to improve macros. Okay. So there's that. And then remove some unused deprecated time stuff from basic. Boom. The new Threadripper can do 4,000 cycles in the time it takes light to cross 1 foot distance. I mean, dude, CPUs are just insane. It shocks me that computers even work at all. Like, I honestly don't understand how it's possible. It is just completely insane that computers work at all. Right-click Explorer on the taskbar. Here? I mean, maybe it all got erased. I mean, where is it? It's like add to favorites. Why don't I see that anymore? Did they get rid of this? Can I not pin stuff on the... Dude, it's... Oh, pin to quick... It's called quick access here. Yeah, I don't know... Like, why can't I move this above desktop? I have to move desktop below that. This totally changed. What is going on? Did this update? Like, what is happening? Is that dude's file explorer in beta yet? Because I totally want to switch away from this trash holio right here. Like, how is all this stuff about your home folder and preferences and all this in Windows such a trash fire? It's like they keep making it more complicated and it keeps getting worse. File pilot, yeah. I'm okay waiting for open beta. I don't mind it. It's like also why is there so much? It's like the people who designed all the terrible Gmail changes and stuff have now gotten to the file explorer and it's got like small text with a ton of space. Why is this all that modern designers know how to do is small text with a ton of space? Like what is even happening right now? Is this a bug or is this how it's supposed to look? It's a bug. It was supposed to have more space. Okay, let me see what people whispered to me back when I was asking for that. Okay, Agda. Very heavy on. Okay, we're going to see what this is. It's going to be not at all like what we were doing. This is a stub. Oh my god, the bright mode is killing me, dude. So on iOS now, in the browser, at least in Safari, there's a very useful thing where you go to the bottom and you click the icon, and there's like a hide distracting items, and you click that, and then when there's like a buggy thing that's covering half the screen and you can't click on the button that they want you to click on, you hide that, and then you can actually use the web page correctly. We need that, but for dark mode, right? Although maybe they have that down here. What does this do? Like, this is just a crime against humanity right now. It's so depressing that someone can't make an OS and be able to interface with a GPU that they paid for. I know, man. That's where we're at, though. Dark reader extension. I don't want to turn into a Sith. Okay. It is now possible to declare user-defined syntax that binds identifiers. Records. I mean, the problem is I don't know the base language, so I don't really know what I'm looking at here. It just makes it hard. It's true for all this kind of thing. If you don't understand the syntax of the base programming language, you're going to have a hard time, right? I mean, I know the for all symbol. I know member. I know cross. Yeah, I mean, this looks like I would have to take a tutorial in the language to understand this, basically. Someone whispered to me and said test and then never sent a link. I almost want to learn lean at some point just because provability is super interesting, as I've said before. And you know, that's one of the areas where maybe they're making strides. So it would just be useful to lean is the new thing of how you prove that your mathematical proof isn't wrong. It's like it's a domain specific language where you literally translate a proof down to microscopic granules that all pass, you know, a core set of axioms, right? And then as long as you can do that, like if you can operationally, produce, it's all bidirectional, right? Math. So if you can go one direction, that means you can go from the core axioms all the way up to your proof. And it's how you make sure there's not a hole in your proof. That is my naive non-mathematician explanation. You can't comprehend how that might be possible. I mean, I think it's fundamentally harder for programs than for math. I mean, I know it's in vogue if you're in academia to pretend that programs are just math. And that, I mean, that is true in some sense, right? But it's also not true. So, yeah, the problem is I'm going to have to learn type theory, which I don't want to do. The basic type theory in lean is simple. Okay. Maybe we'll do that sometime during the vacation. We'll have like lean day. Is type theory needed to build a compiler? Absolutely not. No, it is not. I built this whole compiler. I don't know any type theory hardly. And guess what? This compiler is a lot faster and more robust than a lot of compilers written by people who think you need to know type theory to write a compiler. Is it just left type is equal to right type? No, I mean, unless your programming language is very simple, that's not going to fly. But so there needs to be a system of. So, okay, here's the thing. Type theory is different, kind of, but this gets very confusing, right? In principle, if we're being completely correct and clear thinking, right? The thing called type theory does not really have much to do with the types in your programming language, which are the data layouts, let's say, and error checking conventions for your variables, right? Those are two different things. We're using the word type in kind of two different ways, but kind of not. Now, it becomes extremely conflated because there's the whole branch of programming language research is about using type theory, or one of the major things they do is use type theory in a way that is conflationary on this, where you use type theory to help reason about the types in your language. But like that, to me, that's just a weird confusion kind of, right? Like it's not, I can't really steel man it because I stay away from it whenever possible because it looks very unproductive. But, you just got to realize that when someone says type theory, they're not saying this is how you check an integer against a string and decide there should be an error message. It's like kind of a different thing from that, right? Do we have algebraic data types? No, fuck that. But also, algebraic data type doesn't mean anything because when people ask you, do you have that? they ask usually about features that frickin' C has and has had since 1970. So like, this is one of these things, like people think they need an entity component system to make a video game. It's like they think you need algebraic types to have reasonable types. And it's like, but no, wait. Now, there are a couple of features that correlate, right? So like pattern matching on tagged unions is a feature that correlates, right? But if you like that, if you think that's really useful, then you should really be asking, do you have pattern matching on tagged unions, not algebraic types? Because algebraic types doesn't really mean much. I don't think. I mean, if you live in a functional language world, maybe it does. I don't know. What does an algebraic type even mean? It means you can pretend that you're constructing other types out of your base types using math operators. And conveniently, the only two real operators are plus and times. And conveniently, I forget which is which, but plus means union and times means just sequential statements in a struct. It's like mathematizing. It's like the way that monads don't do anything. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing as monads not doing anything. I'm sure that algebraic data type advocates would probably argue with me about that statement and try to make a stronger case about them. I don't know what that case would be, because every time I look, it's literally plus and times. And then with some tagging, because a lot of these languages are memory safe and don't want you to touch memory directly and stuff. And so they tend to have tagging and compiler operations to, navigate unions safely and all that, right? But that has nothing to do with algebra. That's literally nothing to do with algebra at all. So I don't know, man. You've made some errors in C using the wrong union struct on a given tag. I mean, literally everybody has done that. So yes, it is a category of error that we would like to not have. And in this language, we do some things about that. But we still do C-style unions. And, we just have stronger type checking than C. So you're more likely to notice that you made a mistake, but there is still the same kind of a basic operation happening here. Why would you call a dynamically resizable array a vector? I mean, I used to make fun of them all the time for that, but then I realized they sort of get it from CPU people, because CPU people call not a resizable array allocated in memory, but CPU people call arrays of integers vectors. Now, that said, the reason they call it that is because you can add vectors and all that, right? So it actually makes a lot more sense in CPU land than it does in C++. By the time you get to C++ land, it's like a total embarrassing misnomer. But they kind of got it from the CPU people, right? That's all. But in CPU land, it kind of mostly makes sense. So is it Bjarne's fault? Yes. But it's not as much his fault as if they didn't say vector in CPU land, right? How do we introduce programming excellence as a minimum bar? I don't know. It might be gone forever as a minimum bar. I mean, if you're creating a company, within that company, you could like only hire people who are good or whatever, but that's really hard. I've tried to only hire people who are good, and it doesn't always work. So, you know, good luck. You remember a video where the guy that called them vectors apologized for it? Okay. Well, that's good. At least he knows. Right? Because that's the thing. Like, the STL came along a little bit later. Like, base C++ was introduced, and it was just like the classes and inheritance and all that. And then a dude made the template library, and then it became standard. But I do remember that was a different contributor initially. It doesn't always work because there's no time to hire. It's a mixture. Sometimes you need somebody and you're like, well, this is the best that we see right now. But also judging people is just very difficult. Judging people accurately is very difficult. Unless you put them through an unreasonable interview process, right? Like if your interview process is going to be like Army Ranger selection, where almost nobody passes and you starve in the forest for 14 days or whatever, I mean, you'll probably get some good candidates out of that, but the problem is you're competing with other people who don't do that, and so, yeah, I don't know. You have to do leak code interviews. I have never done leak code, but I feel like it's not very relevant to my industry. Good developers aren't going to do arduous interviews. Yeah, I mean, especially if it's someone who ostensibly has a track record. Here's the problem, right? Let's say I wanted to hire someone from a company that has made sophisticated games that are at least kind of impressive, right? Or very impressive, whatever. Just somewhere in the upper part of the spectrum. Like, let's say we were going to hire someone from like Naughty Dog, not current year Naughty Dog, but like Naughty Dog 5 years ago or whatever. If they're an actual good person who is responsible for important things, they're not going to fuck around and deal with a really annoying interview process, right? They're going to feel disrespected by that. On the other hand, for every one person like that, there's like 4 or 5 people who didn't really do that much and just kind of hung out. And they did some stuff, but like they're not the people you want to hire, but you can't tell unless you have inside information, and often that inside information is wrong. You can't really tell just from looking at a resume which person that is, right? So you have to at least talk to them. But so you can't hire people just based on, are they from a developer with a good track record, and do they say they were responsible for important things on this game? Because it's again this thing, the square root of the team size is responsible for more than half the work, right? So if a game was made by 100 people, there's like 10 people who were really good. And that's in the game industry, man. Other industries are probably worse. Have we hired anyone from Ubisoft? Yes. Yes. I mean, we've hired people who had experience at several companies, including Ubisoft. Yeah. Not programmers, though, I don't think. That's more art team. One of the things you see if people made promotions at the company they worked in. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, game companies are not as much like that. Like the really good game companies are not about moving you through a career track and you getting a promotion to a new title every year. That just wasn't the culture. Maybe it's starting to go more that way, but that's just not what it was, right? That's more like, you're going to hire someone from Amazon or Google or something. I mean, if you're going to hire someone from Amazon and they worked there 6 years and didn't get a promotion, that's probably a no hire. Unless they were hired as like VP of something. And so there was nowhere up to go. Isn't promotion just getting a better position at a different job? Well, no. So here's the thing. Lots of millennials and younger have been doing that, right? Because it's like, oh, why wait for a promotion in my company when I could go to a different company and get paid more and get both companies on my resume as experience? And so I've seen resumes from people. It's very common to like job hop every 18 months or even 12 months. And if I see a number of hops like that and they don't have a good story about why it happened, like in terms of why one company was intolerable or whatever, it's just a no hire because, I mean, it's not an automatic no hire. It's just a strong negative indicator because that person never got involved at anything deep. Like if you see like 5 1-year tours of duty, it's like that person was barely at each company long enough to understand what was going on or what the code base was like or whatever. They never really got productive probably, and then they just moved on to making more money somewhere else. And like that's not really someone with serious experience, I would say. Right? So that looks bad, and I don't think the people who did this realize that it looks bad. Because at a lot of these companies, like if you were Google several years ago or Amazon several years ago or whatever, you were just trying to hire anyway. You didn't care. So you would hire somebody who had 4 1-year tours of duty. But like now it's getting a little tighter, I hope. I don't know. I think some of the companies are tighter. And so it probably looks worse than someone who, did 3 years in one place and 2 another place. One year is kind of long. No, not if you're working on real projects. It's not very long. Job hop every 18 months is very common advice. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that advice. I understand, but it's also it's it's bad in terms of, is this a serious person? That's all. It's just not an indicator of a serious person. I hate to lay it out like that, but that's how it is. Some of that blame is on companies. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, if somebody has like one or two things where it's like 18 months or a year or even like 4 months, right? That's fine. Like if you went somewhere and you decided it sucked and you left 4 months later, that's totally fine. In fact, that could be a positive indicator, right? Um, if they fired you, it's quite possibly negative, but maybe not, because maybe that company sucks, right? I've been fired. So, and I would hire me. So, it's complicated. But this just gets back to the original point. Hiring is difficult. That's all. All right, I think it is time to end the stream. Thanks for coming by. I'll see you all later. And have a good. Let's try to raid again. Let's try again. I know we're not going to find anything, but we're going to try. Godot shaders. Oh, that could be interesting.
Create a texture manager. Sorry. This is a.
All right, good. We found a raid. Thanks everyone.